Hey everyone, this is James Pelton. Sorry, a couple minutes late getting this started. I had another meeting that went long. I tend to get a little chatty, which makes things just take extra long. So, hope you all had a safe. If you're in the U.S., hope you had a safe 4th of July. If you're anything like my family, we did a 1st of July, 2nd of July, 3rd of July, 4th of July, and I am fireworked out. I'm needing a nap this afternoon, but it was a good holiday. So I feel like we need a holiday the day after holidays to kind of recoup from all the stuff that we did. So I'm excited for today. We have Steve Lawson, and I met Steve at the 1971 Fake Money Experience conference that I was at a few weeks ago, and we talked at the conference a little bit. He's a believer, so that immediately I'm like, okay, great, we're gonna be friends. And then he has a lot of stuff that he's working on. And so I just wanted to bring him on, kind of hear a little bit about his background, his financial freedom fast track that he's been doing. I want to talk through that a little bit and just see if there's some value that we can squeeze out of Steve here for my community. What I need from you guys, first off, it's so good to see you guys. Every time, I've been off for the last 3 or 4 days, and it just, I feel like you're my family, and I missed you guys. So good to be back. Welcome, Hydro Farmer, to the community. Thanks for joining. We'll see you in Telegram and Discord. Dustin said, let's retire early. Yes, that is the goal. And some of you might not know this, but one of the main goals for my channel, like obviously I want to bring God glory. I want to I want to talk about what I'm interested in, but one of my main goals is to help people who don't like their 9 to 5 get out of their 9 to 5. And so I'm always looking for information and projects and just whatever I can find to kind of help people on this journey. So question of the day, as we're getting going, just to get the comments kind of started here. This is probably only US people, but how much did you spend on fireworks? There's the question. So go ahead and start that in the comments. If you have questions or anything you want me or Steve to talk about here today, let us know and we'll direct that conversation as it works out. So, Steve, welcome to the channel today. Can you start us off with maybe just a little bit of your story, your background, and how you got to where you're at?
Absolutely. So, in short, I got started 30 years ago. Makes me feel old. I got started as a financial advisor. So I help people invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, that sort of stuff. Did that for about 10 years. And then just kind of realized, that was right around when the tech bubble burst. I'm like, you know what, there's got to be a better way for people to be able to retire, build their nest egg, have passive cash flow. And so in 2002, I switched over to helping people invest in real estate instead of stocks and bonds and everything. So I did primarily real estate for most of the last nearly 20 years. And a lot of buy and hold. I did a couple hundred fix and flips. Did about 500 properties in the last 7 years for my investors, helping them build their portfolio of cash flow properties. And a few years ago, I kind of got to the point where I said, okay, this is great. I love real estate, but that's not diversification. And I was also looking at the calendar going, man, I got 2 kids who will be in college in 4 years. I want to create passive cash flow to pay for their college. And so I really went on a quest, started about 4 years ago, to figure out how I can create enough passive cash flow to pay for their college just from the passive cash flow. And so I really began that about 4 or 5 years ago. And that's really what kind of motivated and drove me to achieve what I did, which is, again, about 4 or 5 years ago, I almost started over, nearly zero assets and zero liabilities. I'm sorry, zero assets and zero passive cash flow. But I've built it up to just past 50,000 a month of passive cash flow.
Wow.
Starting from zero about 5 years ago. And so what I've been doing in the last 2-3 years is showing people how I did that. And it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy that. And again, over half that cash flow does come from the digital assets. And they've been really great. And one of the things I hear a lot is, gosh, Steve, you're lucky. And I tell people my gains so far have been about 50 times what my losses have been. I've been involved in a couple of small rug pulls, but for the most part, everything else is still there. And you notice I call this the 7 secrets to better luck investing. And I kind of say that tongue in cheek because you kind of make your own luck, the way I look at it. one of the examples I use is I had a conference several years ago, this is 20 years ago, and there was financial advisors from all over the country that were there, and there was a golf group, and in that was a guy from a small town in Indiana, that's where I'm from, and he played golf every 2-3 months, and just kind of weekend golfer. And another guy in the foursome, he didn't know this, but he actually had been on the PGA Tour for about 20 years and had just retired. And every hole, the guy would go, "Man, you sure are lucky." And just every hole, that was a lucky shot. "Man, you got a lucky roll on that one." And everything for him was luck. It was, "Oh, you're so lucky." But I knew that it wasn't luck. It was preparation, hard work, training, and all those different things that led to those results. And that's where that's why I kind of joke about, how lucky I am in digital assets. It's these 7 secrets, this preparation, and what I did to get to this point that kind of creates my own luck. So that's a little bit about the background, kind of how I got to where I am.
Okay, very cool. No, I love that. Yeah, and I totally agree. Like, I believe there is luck involved a little bit, but it's about putting yourself in the right positions where luck can, and obviously as a Christian, we have a whole different take on luck than most people do. But you can't, if you're not doing certain things, there's no way to be lucky. If you hadn't worked on your swing in golf, for example, certainly, you get a hole in one. I'm not going to say, oh, there was 0% luck involved in that, but there's no way that someone who hasn't practiced and hasn't prepared and hasn't gotten themselves in a position where they can get the ball close to the hole, at least, that for that luck to take over to kind of get them the extra minute. So, and there's a song that my kids listen to get pumped up for sporting events, but what is it? It's 10% luck, 20% skill, and there's luck's a part of it, but it's not nearly as much as most people give it credit for. A lot of times it's just an excuse to not put in the effort or not get the knowledge or not get the tools that you need to succeed.
Right.
So totally agree with that. So can you tell us a little bit? So of your, and congratulations on your numbers and your, 50K month and things like that. That's amazing. I think people in the audience are going to look at that and say, "Oh my goodness, that's like dream scenario for me. That's what I want." Can you kind of break down? So how much of that is how much of that is crypto? How much of that is real estate? Is that all crypto? Or kind of break down a little bit where that's coming from?
Sure. Of that, between 20 and 30 is in real estate. And right now, about 30 or so is in crypto, 30 a month from crypto. But then I've also got some other things I've done, such as I do what they call notes. Like notes receivable. People, I've made loans and people owe money. It's all secured by real estate, so keeps it nice and safe. But that'd be the other piece that makes up most of the rest of it.
Okay, very good. And then I kind of want to talk through just some of your thoughts on what people need to do to succeed. But maybe sometimes I like to start with the calls to action. So if people are wondering, so what do I need to do? Can you tell us a little bit about infinite passive assets and just what you kind of offer and what you're trying to do with that?
Sure. The main thing we do, again, my company is called Infinite Passive Assets, and the goal is to help you generate passive cash flow. And we do that a variety of different methods. One of the main things we do is we have a course, because there's several steps people need to go through to get from where they are to having passive cash flow that's consistently coming in every month. And it's a process. And the course doesn't take long. Most people go through it in less than 4 weeks. It's pretty simple. It's 4 different modules. But with that, we program, we go through, and again, I'll talk about these in just a minute, a little bit more, but kind of the mindset of, the mental approach to investing, what the assets are, creating a good plan to get you there, and then the implementation of that plan. And so that's the action, is create a plan and take action. So.
Okay, very good. So if you were starting, and maybe this is, obviously you can't tell us the whole entire course in this video here, but if for somebody who's just starting out, so they're like, I'm starting at zero, kind of like you were, and I want to get to where you're at. I want to get to this 50K a month that you're making. What kind of tips or what kind of steps would you say they need to start taking? What's kind of the big picture for reaching goals like that?
So one of them, and again, this is one of the 7 secrets I'll share. It's understanding how to create wealth. Okay. And so a lot of people think of investing as buy low and sell high. I'm going to buy gold at this price and sell it at this price. I'm going to buy a mutual fund or a stock at this price and sell it, and hopefully it goes up. I'm going to buy crypto and hopefully it goes up, buy low, sell high. And that's great. But I can tell you this, there's not one single billionaire in America who made that money by buying low and selling high. They used other techniques. They created wealth. They didn't just grow the wealth they had. And so one good example is in real estate. I bought a house one time. I negotiated with the seller, and my payment to him was $804 a month for 5 years. That was the price of the house. And so I used his money to buy the house, basically. And I placed a tenant who was paying rent at $800 a month. And I kept that the same for the entire time he was there. He was easy to work with. And so that house cost me $4 a month for 5 years. That's how much I paid for that house. And in 5 years, it was paid off. So 4 times 60 months, that house cost me $240 as an investment. And then I sold it for $70,000. Okay.
Wow.
Invested $240, sold it for $70,000. That's creating wealth. It wasn't based on the house appreciating, which it did. I mean, I bought it for 50, essentially, and sold it for 70. So there was some appreciation, but that's not what created the wealth. The wealth was created by using other people's money and by using leverage and a variety of different techniques that we show in the course. And so that's really one of the most effective ways that I built the passive cash flow, was by creating wealth. And it takes a little time and effort, but that's something you can do with very little to no money. Again, I did it with $4 a month in that case.
Okay, very good. So when we're talking about a course like this, so where I see this being potentially more beneficial for people than just like my YouTube channel is very general. It's not specific. It's not, I don't walk people through, here's how you go from where you're at to, 50K a month. I kind of just, it's more general knowledge. This would be kind of, I think, more specific. It would help get you a tailored plan for your situation to get from where you're at to where your goals are. Can you kind of tell, the course is not cheap. Is there kind of a minimum that you would recommend that people have before they get into a course like this, or is this intended for everyone, or what are your thoughts on that?
Good. That's a good question. Obviously, if you can't afford the course, then don't do it. But I've worked with people who have started with less than 10,000, in a couple of cases, barely 2,000. But I've also worked with people who had 6 and 7 figures to start with, and every one of them have said the benefits have been phenomenal. And that's the whole part of that plan. The module 3 is, where are you now, and where do you want to get to? And then you create that plan to get there. And so whatever your starting point is, different people have different assets. Some people have money. Others may not have money. Maybe they've got time. Others may not have time. Maybe you can do some education and some strategy. And there's always something you can do. Those are your 3 most valuable assets: time, money, and knowledge. And if you've got none of the 3, you're in trouble. But if you don't have the money part yet, that's okay. We'll work with you, help you with the time and the knowledge to create that wealth. So really no minimum to get started. Ideally, I'd love for you to have at least $10,000 to work with, but there's no requirement.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what JT said. I need around 10K to start. That's ideal, would be like sitting at the 10K. Obviously, if you have 7 figures, this is going to be a lot more bang for your buck. You're going to be paying, 2,000 for that plan is going to be very helpful. But I really like this because, again, you're kind of come from the traditional financial advisor. And what I've not liked about traditional financial advisors is a lot of them have not gotten into passive income, crypto, these types of things. And so they're just basically putting together a financial plan for you that just involves stocks and bonds, kind of traditionally. And a lot of them they're not at the 50K a month goal that you have yourself. And so that's always been weird to me. I go to a financial advisor and he's making 100K a year. And I'm like, well, that's not my goal. What do you know about that?
Yeah. Well, and basically, you have to understand they are restricted in what they can talk about. They're only allowed to talk about something that is a licensed security that is approved by their broker dealer. So there could even be hardly any crypto qualifies. real estate doesn't qualify. And so a lot of people say, well, gosh, I asked my financial advisor and he said I shouldn't invest in real estate, because he's not allowed to say that you should. He's prohibited. And so they can't tell you invest in real estate, invest in crypto, invest in these things. They're not allowed to talk about those things. From a liability standpoint, they just can't. And so the only thing they're allowed to talk about are the licensed securities that are approved by their managing broker dealer.
Okay. Yep. Nope. Totally, totally true. And let me know, is anyone in the comments a financial advisor? I don't want to offend anybody, but I've ran into that exact same thing where I had a big tax bill, and I was having to come to my financial advisor, my wealth advisor, and be like, hey, because he was basically just, hey, here's your taxes, go ahead and pay this. And I was like, well, can we do some real estate? Can we do something so that this tax bill isn't so big? And he was basically, no, I mean, what I have are mutual funds and bonds, and that's what you can do.
Yeah.
And I just found for myself, it wasn't very helpful. It wasn't true to my situation, and like he didn't have the knowledge in the areas that I wanted him to have the knowledge in, and so that's why I really like something like this. Couple questions from the audience here. What about the way to invest in crypto first, wait for the bull market, sell, and then trying to invest in different sectors, real estate, stocks, leverage, etc.? So yeah, I see a lot of people doing that. They try to, crypto's a lot more volatile, so you can get bigger returns there. So some people go crypto first, get my big returns, and then I'll diversify into real estate, stocks, etc. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, or which way did you do it?
Well, you are not too far off from secret number 5. Which basically I refer to, I talk about velocity and what I call cascading. And basically what that means is you use the gains from one asset to then fund the next asset. And then it kind of flows over into the next one. And so now you've got 2 or 3 of them, and the gains from those 3 now fund number 4. Now you got 4, and it just kind of snowballs and builds. And so we use that strategy quite a bit. And what you want to do is, to make that strategy work the best, you need to start with the assets that have the most velocity, the quickest turnover in money. And I'll give you a quick example. So if you had $20,000 and you're going to invest in agriculture, that's one of my favorite things, and we'll talk about that in a minute as to why. But you go, the coffee plantation that I'm in, okay, you invest $20,000, and over time, it will average at least 12 to 15% per year, passive, nothing to do, you just get money in the bank. Great. But it takes about 4 years from when you invest to when you start getting money. Your money's not working for you. You put 20,000 in, and it's kind of sitting there for 4 years until it starts paying out. Whereas you can use that same 20,000 and you go invest it in some of the crypto. And again, not buy and hold crypto, but in these crypto opportunities that are generating cash flow every month. And that 20,000 in 6 months should have created another 20,000. So now you invest that 20,000 in the agriculture, and you still have the 20,000 working in the crypto. And so by doing it in the right order, you use the gains from one asset to fund the next asset, and use the gains from those to fund the next one, etc. And we call that cascading. And again, it's just the velocity of money, keeping that money moving.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, no, we basically have identical mindsets with that, and it's cool. We kind of came to it from different directions, but
Right.
I have found that that's the best way to do it. Is, yeah, you get some higher cash flowing assets that we can find in crypto, take those returns that, okay, now I've got some money to play with, and then let's get those into stable things. Then you can kind of build this nest egg of passive income that's a little bit safer, not safe, but safer.
Sure. Right.
We'll put it that way. Can I ask, I have a lot of questions for you actually, but I'll try to get them in a good order here. But how dgen do you tend to go? So my audience, I mess around with some more stable crypto stuff, but then we sometimes get into the, 1% a day, 2% a day. I mean, some of these dgen projects, are those a part of your strategy as well? Or what's kind of your philosophy on that?
Absolutely. I love those, but with a lot of criteria. A couple of the secrets that I have are, how do you weed out the ones that are most likely to rug pull? And like I mentioned earlier, I've been in 23 different projects, and so far 2 of them have been a rug pull. 2 of them are currently slow to pay, and the other 17 are doing just fine. And as I go, I adjust my criteria. And right now, my criteria that I use are things that those 4 would no longer qualify. They wouldn't pass my current test. Now they passed the test I had 6 months ago, but they wouldn't even pass anymore. I would not be investing in those now. And so, again, it's just kind of learn as you go, trial and error. Hey, this didn't work. Well, why didn't it work? What was it about that didn't, that should have been a red flag that I should have seen, so I don't make that mistake again? And so right now, like I said, I've got quite a bit that are cash flowing because I did the due diligence. I've figured out how to weed out the ones that are most likely to disappear or have issues, and I just identified those red flags. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Are you able to share? Again, I don't want you to share too much because that I understand this is how you make your living as well. Are you able to share any particular projects that are your favorites right now, whether it be in the more stable side, like you mentioned the coffee field and things like that, or in the dgen side, or just anywhere, any nuggets you can give us?
Sure. Well, sure. I'll share. First thing I'd like to do is share two more of the secrets as to how I weed out some of the dgen projects.
Oh, great.
Because I think this will be a really big help. First of all, know the manager. You need proof that it's a real person. And in my due diligence, I'll be honest, there was one of them that came out about 3 months ago. I loved it. The website, how it was designed, how it was laid out, how it paid. I mean, it was like, man, this is going to be one of my two favorite projects. This is fantastic. And then I started looking and doing the due diligence, and I just said, oh, this so-and-so is our CEO. Oh, when you look up this guy on the internet, oh, he's got a LinkedIn profile. This guy's supposed to be an MIT grad from 12 years ago and super successful. And his LinkedIn profile was about 30 days old, and he had 4 friends. I thought, well, that's kind of unusual. I wonder about their CMO, their operating officer. Looked that person up. Their LinkedIn profile was 30 days old, and they had 4 friends. All the people in the company had a brand new LinkedIn profiles with essentially no contacts. And I just thought that's a red flag. That's just kind of unusual. And again, just did a little more did he really graduate from MIT? And someone I work with, we talked, and he went ahead and contacted MIT. They're proud of their graduates. They'll tell you whether or not he's a graduate, and he was not. And I'm like, okay, this could be a good project, but that's enough red flags that I think I'm staying out. And it lasted about 6 weeks. And my understanding is they pulled in about $40 million before they disappeared. But those red flags were enough for me to stay on the sideline because I couldn't tell who was really running it and who the manager was, that sort of stuff. And so that's one thing. You've got to know who's running it. Either you or some third party needs to do an audit, due diligence on who is managing that money. The second one is get proof of results, proof that they're making money. If they're saying they're making 1% a day, great. I have some that are making 1% a day, and they show all of the trades, every single one of them, every single day. And they'll have days where, hey, we made 28 trades and 21 of them were good. And here's the dollar amount. Here's what we bought, sold, profit, boom. And yeah, we lost money on 6 of them. That's trading. It happens. If someone says, oh, no, we've never, ever lost money on any trade, I'd be pretty skeptical. But by showing how they're actually making the money, that's huge. That transparency is very important. If all they're saying is, oh, yeah, we'll pay you 3% a day, no problem. How are you making that? None of your business. Don't worry, we'll pay you. I'd be really worried. And so knowing how they're getting their gains, those 2 things right there are 2 of the most important criteria. We got about 6 others that we use to weed out other programs, but those are the top 2 that weed out a lot of the dgen projects that are not worth investing in. Okay. So with that said, so with that said, going back to your question, we use diversification, and which is one of the secrets. I use 6 different markets. Stock market, yeah, that's one of them. Dgen, that's one of the 6. And so if you think of a piece of pie, you've got 6 different pieces. They're not all the same size. It doesn't have to be evenly split across all 6 markets, but you've got diversification in each of these different areas. Agriculture, that's one of them. Again, stocks is one, real estate is one, notes is one, dgen is one. But within each of those, I am further diversified. So just in the dgen, the digital asset piece of that overall portfolio, I've got that split across more than 20 different assets. So that diversification is super, super important. So, so that said, I've got on the agriculture side, coffee, avocados, mangoes, oranges, chocolate, walnut trees. And so there's, again, diversification within that. So those are some of the agriculture projects. On the dgen side, I mean, there's so many. I've actually got a database. I try and track every dgen opportunity I see. I'm up to 250 that I've identified, researched some point of, and I've invested, like I said, about 23 of them. I'll tell you, I won't name specific ones, but in general, if they will show you every day what their trades are, and again, a lot of them, they have Telegram channels where they're posting all their trades every day. That right there makes me feel a lot more comfortable. That's what right now 4 of my top 5 would fall into that category.
Okay, very good. Yeah, we'll have to. It'd be great to have you back once a month or something just to talk over, I don't know, what you're seeing in the market, and because you're putting a lot of research into, that's a question I get a lot is, James, how much research do you put into crypto projects? And honestly, when I first started, I spent a lot of time researching, but recently, I mean, in the last year or so, YouTube and meetings and advising projects and that has taken up a lot of my time, and I don't spend nearly the time researching that I used to. So I love to have resources like Steve, who is actively out there doing all that stuff. And then I kind of rely on research like what Steve does to say, hey, here's what I found looking at this and this. So really appreciate that. In your course, do you go through kind of specific projects that you not recommend, because I understand none of it's financial advice, or do you talk more in generalities to get people to kind of make their own decisions?
So good question. So within the course, again, it's kind of in 4 modules. So the second module, we're talking about the 6 different markets, understanding those, understanding what a non-correlated means. And if you don't mind, I'll explain that real quick because it's super important. Non-correlated means essentially not related. So agriculture and stock market, for example, in 2022, stock market went down, crypto went down. And what happened to your prices of your groceries? They went up because of inflation. And so all the assets that I had in agriculture, all the cash flow from all those went up with inflation. They went up when the stock market went down. That means that they're not related. In other words, if they'd all gone down together, what you don't want is a portfolio where everything goes down together. And so within my overall portfolio, the stocks went down, but the agriculture and the digital assets and those other things actually went up. And so it's important to have a portfolio that is not correlated. With that said, and I apologize, what was the actual question again?
You know what? I don't even. I asked if you go through specific projects in your work.
So we explain that diversification in module 2, and then we create a plan in module 3, and then in module 4, it's implementation. And yes, we identify specific. Here's the exact. Here's the top 5, 6 that I recommend. I'd start with these 2. Use those gains to fund number 3 or number 4. And so we definitely provide the very specific criteria there of exactly which products to invest in. Again, we don't require you to. It's up to you, but we offer all those private opportunities to you so that you can invest in those.
Okay, very good. And then when somebody hears about investing in avocados and chocolate and things like that, I think to a lot of people that sounds really interesting because, I mean, people are always going to be eating chocolate, right? Like that's not something that's going to go away. Yeah. So how do people get started in investing in something like that? Do you have to be an accredited investor? Do you have specific companies that kind of handle that for you? Is that all stuff you go through in your course as well?
Yeah, it's all stuff we go through in the course. Like for the coffee plantation, I've got 2 more trips down to Panama this year. The guy who started that company grew up in Canada, lived in the U.S. for 15 years, got his MBA in business, decided he wanted to be a coffee plantation owner, moved down to Panama. And so everything is done kind of the way we would do it here in the U.S., even though it's in Panama, but it is, just top notch coffee plantation, and just the way they do everything is just phenomenal. And so I take trips down there. I've got 2 more this year where I'm taking investors down there to meet the people in charge, to taste the coffee, literally taste the chocolate, meet and see how things are run, and decide if you want to invest. And so I introduce people to the specific opportunities like that. That one does not require you to be accredited. There are some that do, but most of them that we operate in do not. And also the minimums are surprisingly low. Most of the minimums are about for the agriculture are about 15 to 20,000. So you don't need to have a couple $100,000 laying around to be able to do it. It's just 15, 20,000. You can get into most of these opportunities.
Okay, very cool. No, I love it. Let's see. We got some questions from the audience, so we'll start bringing those up. And feel free to monologue on any of these if there's something you
Okay.
want to talk about. This is people, they hear from me all the time, so this is the
Okay.
Steve time. So, Passive D Life wants to know: are you planning to grow your 50K, or what are some of your financial goals?
Sure. Good question. Right now, I have, so with each, and again, we talk about a lot of this in the strategy part of the course, but there are different phases. And so there are sometimes where I'm contributing to an investment to get it up to a certain floor, for example. A lot of times I want to have at least 5,000 in each one. And so, hey, I get started. I've only got 2,000 laying around. All right, I'll put 2,000 in there. I need to put a little bit more in there. And then for a while, I let it grow. And then once it hits a certain limit, I'm pulling all the gains from that specific investment. So I've got several where I've maxed out, and just every week I just pull the gains, pull the gains. I've got several others that are in that growth phase where what I do is I alternate. One week I'll pull the gain, the next week I'll compound the gain. And so that way it's still growing and my overall cash flow is growing, but I'm still pulling out my principal at the same, some of my principal at the same time. And so I'm doing that with quite a few at this point. So that will enable the overall cash flow to continue to grow. And I mean, by the end of this year, I mean, I don't think I'm quite going to get 100,000 a month overall, but it'll be close by the time you add everything together.
Okay, very cool. Love it. Ranger says, I want to retire early. Hopefully God will provide. And yeah, I mean, yeah, keep praying through it. Understand that God has a better plan for you than you do. So just keep that in mind as you're praying and as you see the results that God brings. And I'll say too that I think it's detrimental if you Proverbs says wealth obtained quickly dwindles. So it's actually, I think it's better to gain slowly and kind of learn as you're going and learn lessons not only about money and investing, but learn about how do you have a lot of money. Getting a lot of money quickly, we find this with, athletes. They're 22 years old, they get millions of dollars, and they don't use it well. It wrecks their life in a lot of cases. We see this with celebrities, musician Justin Bieber got millions of dollars, and it kind of wrecked his life. So were you going to say something?
James, it's funny you say that, because secret number one of the 7 secrets that I share is to fix your mindset. And a couple of examples I use, one is the lottery winner. There's been numerous studies done that most lottery winners within 3 or so years of winning the lottery are right back where they were. They were making $50,000 a year and they won $2 million. You're like, okay, they've got 40 years of income. They're set for life. And yet 3 years later, it's all gone. And what's happened was, there's a phrase I saw one time, I absolutely loved it, is you can't outperform poor money management. They added some money to their bank account, but they had poor financial management behavior. And once they won the lottery, they used that same poor financial decision making just with a larger dollar amount, and the next thing you know, it was gone. And so understanding, working on your mental approach to money is super important. And it can be something, there are people that, they were growing up, oh, rich people are jerks. That's what their parents said when they were growing up. They grew up poor and all rich people are jerks. That's what they heard their whole life. Well, subconsciously, your mind is sitting there thinking, well, I don't want to be a jerk. Let's make sure we're not rich. You may not realize your mind is doing that, and it will sabotage your decision making. You've got to address the mental approach to money first before, again, that's where the growing the money slowly comes in handy, because, all right, you're adjusting to it. You're growing it when you just suddenly have tons of money and you haven't changed how you approach money, you end up wasting it. So that's a big part of it. And one more thing in the mindset, it's fear and greed, because those are the 2 biggest problems in investing, is when you're making decisions based on fear or based on greed, it almost always goes wrong. Those 2 things are, and the only way to get over that is to be able to invest with logic and instead of emotion. It's easier said than done, but all that's part of that mental process.
Yep, absolutely. No, I totally agree. I think it's way more beneficial to, okay, I'm going to start with 2K a month. And, the Bible says too, he who is faithful with a little will be entrusted with much. And so the way God generally works, I see, is he starts with a little, sees how you do with it. Do you use it just for greed, just for yourself? Are you generous with it? Do you hold it open-handedly? Do you start getting prideful that you're in this financial situation that other people aren't in? And then the Bible says, he who is faithful with a little, I will entrust with much. And so I think, usually better to go slowly in that process so you can learn those lessons as you go. Steve says, would getting in very early be one of your strategies? I think he means for the dgen plays, especially.
Yeah, honestly, no. It was for a while, and the only reason, the reason most of these they say, "Hey, you need to get in early," is because they know that it's going to rug sooner or later, and the sooner you get in before it rugs, the better your chances of getting your money out. So if you're doing the really high risk ones and you're not doing your due diligence, then yeah, get in early and maybe you'll get lucky more often than not and get your money back before it rugs. But if you do your due diligence and you've got a stable program that's going to be around for years, and if it's already been around for 3 months, it doesn't matter. Again, I've got several right now. As a matter of fact, there's 2 of them where they cannot rug. Long story, but it's a different design. You control your money, and they work with that to create the gains for you. And so there's different things you can use. And so if you do the due diligence and it's a stable project, then getting in early is not nearly as important.
Okay. Nope. Yep. Good answer. I totally agree. And there's kind of a balance you have to play too, where if it's a Ponzi, getting in early is going to be helpful, but
Right.
also early is the best chance for a rug pull. If it's been around 6 months, there's less likely that it's going to, rug pull. So there's just all these balances, and it's the Wild West, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of things you have to look for. Let's see. Funny Turo says coffee NFT potentially. And maybe me and Steve can talk about that. Steve, you might know, I've been doing all these different NFTs to kind of help people get into different investment opportunities without having to do all the work themselves. So, I mean, maybe the problem that with some of these real life investment things is, like Steve said, you might make 12 or 15% from, your coffee. And when you put an NFT out and you say, this is going to get you 15% a year, then most people aren't interested in that.
Yeah.
So it's a
Right.
difficult space that we're in.
That's right.
GT says, I'm looking for investors myself who will support me financially with my first steps. What do you think of this idea? And would you do that too? In general, it's probably best if you are able to hustle to get the initial funds for yourself. So what I recommend to people is, if you're not making enough from your 9 to 5 to kind of start an investment journey, try to find a side hustle or some way to just get in you can do $100 a month and start progressing towards your financial goals. Again, the challenge with just giving somebody money and saying, hey, good luck with this is they haven't proven to me that they're able to hustle, that they're going to, use the money I send them wisely and things like that. But if I see somebody that's hustling and they're like, hey, I put together this business and I'm trying to do this, those are the people that I gravitate towards and like, hey, how can I help you in this journey? But I don't know, Steve, do you have any thoughts on that as well? Any nuggets of wisdom for us?
Well, so in the again, creating the wealth part, we talk a lot about other people's money. And again, if you're starting with very little money and you're willing to hustle and you're smart and you've got time, then there's a way to make it happen. And so I'll tell you, early on, I gave the example of how I bought a house for $4 a month. Well, I also bought several houses where I had a partner. They had they had money, they had credit, they had equity, they had money and credit. But I was the one who went out and I found the deal, managed the tenant, managed everything. I did all the work. They put in the money and we split the profits. And then we also split the equity down the road. Well, that equity, given what the real estate market has done in the last 5 years, turned out to grow quite quickly. And so I have a couple dozen properties that I acquired with $0, but just my effort. And so you find the right partner who's willing to do that, then it absolutely can be a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point that you make there. Is if you're approaching investors, it's best to not go to them and just say, hey, do you have any money you can give me for something? But
Right.
it's better to do some hustle that they wouldn't be able to do themselves. Like me, I don't have a lot of extra time. So when people bring me, hey, I have this investment opportunity, I've put it together, I've put all the pieces in place, I just need some capital. Usually, if you're able to do that, there's capital to be found.
That's right.
There's people that have money that are looking around for something to do with it. And so if you're able to kind of be, maybe, again, you talked about the 3 types of capital. There's knowledge, time and knowledge, capital, and time. You might add in energy as well, might be a fourth one maybe. But if you're, a lot of these wealthy people don't have time. So if you can put in a little extra time and say, okay, I put this together, that would be a good way to approach an investor to kind of help you in those first steps, GT. So that's what I would recommend. So Steve, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Freedom Frog says +1 coffee NFT. There's one on Cardano, but project died after mint. Yeah, and it is tough because you're not paying out very much, and it's going to be probably pretty delayed. Like they're going to have to plant the coffee, and it's going to be probably a while before you see any return. And so it's kind of hard in the way crypto people think and degen crypto people think. It's hard to do those real world assets, I've found personally. But I don't know, Steve, do you have any other thoughts on that?
I agree. But one thing I also want to address is I talk about passive cash flow, and I have it divided into three categories. There's short-term, long-term, and infinite. And if you think about, if you own a house and you're renting it out, you can make repairs, and basically you can keep that house for 20, 30, 50 years. You can keep it until you die. That's infinite money. You own the house. It's just you can always be collecting rent from that. If you've got dividend stocks, for example, that you're getting the dividends, the stock doesn't disappear. It stays there. You just keep collecting dividends. And so there's different things like that that can last forever. There's other things that are long-term. Agriculture is a good example. A lot of those last 25 to 40 years. Actually, the coffee plantation, with the way they do it, it's actually infinite with the way they actually can replant new plants next to the older ones. And so that's income. It might take 3 or 4 years to start, but it'll last the rest of your life. And so, and notes is another one. When we have mortgages, they're 30-year mortgages. I have several of those, and I've still got 28 years of payments left to go, and those are long term. But then the dgen and some of the other things tend to be shorter term. Could be 2 years, could be 5 years. We don't know. Fantastic. And so when I look at that passive cash flow that I have, yeah, it's a pretty number, but of that, half of it could be gone tomorrow, could be gone in 6 months. And so what I'm constantly doing is I'm, again, using all that passive cash flow from the dgen and the other stuff that's generating high cash flow to buy those longer term assets so that I'll have income for years and years. And so it's just, I won't say it's a game, but it's just kind of that constant, all right, let's take these gains, move it over here and turn it into longer term passive cash flow. And that's where the coffee fits in. It's not a short term. Like I said, it's probably not a good fit for an NFT because income shouldn't even start for 3, maybe 4 years from the time you plant until you get that first harvest and revenue.
Amazing. Yep. That identical to what I've been doing with my dgen stuff and my passive. I'm actually an investor in a coffee plantation in Colombia, is where I've invested. So yeah, totally agree. I figure, what I do sometimes when I'm looking for investments is what do I use a lot? What could I not go without? And so one of them that came to mind was like, well, coffee. I don't care. Because, whatever happens with inflation, I'm still going to buy coffee no matter what the price ends up being. And so that was one I wanted to get into as well.
Nice.
Let's see. What's the return of investment in agriculture per year or per month? For what I found is, if you can get 12% in a real world investment opportunity, I think that's pretty good. I don't know, Steve, if you've found higher or lower than that. What's been your experience?
Yeah, and it varies from project to project. The coffee is actually a little bit lower. It's on the 12 to 15% side, but it's infinite. And so, for example, the mangoes, it's actually higher. It's definitely over 20% per year, but it's a 25-year fixed period. And so, again, pros and cons. So some of them are definitely higher. There's a couple others that project to have a much higher return, but they're different fruits. There's one in Asia I'd never even heard of, but I've looked at tons of reports and like, okay, it looks like this is just phenomenal. So and I know the company behind it is fantastic. So I may give that one a shot. But overall, more than 12% is pretty good. Usually that 12 to 20% range is where you're going to find most of them.
Yep. That's been my experience as well. Freedom Frog says maybe not 15% APR, yeah, but everyone is interested in free coffee utility. Yes, so maybe I'll talk with my Colombian coffee plant and ask them like, hey, could we work out some deal? A lot of times they're not wanting to work with an NFT collection or something like that because they deal with big money And so rather than dealing with 1,000 small investors, they'd rather have just, if one guy can bring $1 million, they would rather do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can look into that a little bit and see what we can figure out. So, well, hey, amazing, Steve. I really like you. I really like, did you have something, any other things that you want to talk about or bring up?
Well, just through the conversation, we covered 6 of the 7 secrets. So I do want to share one more, and that is have a plan. And I know a lot of people think that sounds boring. Oh, I don't want to, create a plan, but that's what will make you succeed. It gives you direction. And one of my favorite examples, and that I read a book once, was a guy said, you're lost at sea, you've got a boat, and you have a choice. Do you want a motor or a compass? And most people want the motor. But it doesn't matter how fast you're going if you're not going the right direction. Get the compass, go the right way. You may go a little slower, but you will get there. Whereas, most people, I want to go faster. I want to go faster. Well, where are you going? I have no idea, but I want to go fast. And so having that plan solves that problem. It keeps you on track, and so that you're going the direction that's going to help achieve some goals. And so, and it helps. The other part of that, it keeps you, when I'm saying on course, so that you're not making emotional decisions. When you've got a plan that says, okay, here's how I diversify, like, oh man, I really like this opportunity. I think I want to put a ton of money over there. Oh, no, wait, that's not the plan. It keeps you from making emotional decisions or decisions out of fear when you just stick with the plan. So that's the one other thing that I would say is a big secret to having better luck with investing.
Yeah. And audience, let me know who here has ever made an emotional decision in investing or in crypto because they didn't have a plan in what they were doing. Yeah. I mean, I do it every day. Sometimes when I have some fun sitting around, I'm just like, what do I feel like doing with this right now? And sometimes it's just kind of random. It's like, well, you know what? I feel like putting it into this. And a plan is a much better way to make decisions, something thought out, something researched, something prayed through. If you're a Christian, that's definitely a better way to go. So, well, hey, this has been super helpful. I would love to have you back. I think you have a lot of wisdom and knowledge that fills in some gaps from what I have. I think your traditional financial advisor role serves you well too. And I think it'd be great to have more financial advisors kind of in this side of the space because I don't see many of them. So calls to action, or did you have something else you wanted to share too?
Well, just the last thing is just I kind of want to go through the course real quick and just kind of talk, and that'll be super short. But the 4 main parts of it is we address your mindset to get you out of your own way and let your money work for you. And I talk about that a lot of times. You're kind of in your own way mentally. Let's get you out of the way. Let your money do what it's supposed to be doing for you. We show you how to diversify into 6 different markets, so you don't have to worry about inflation, interest rates, stock market, crypto volatility, whatever. You're diversified and protected. We create a plan so you're always making progress. You stay on track and you avoid making poor decisions. And then lastly, we hold your hand while you implement so that you create massive passive cash flow the fastest and safest way possible. And so, again, that includes access to private opportunities, different things like that. I mean, we will show you specifically, here's exactly where my money is. Here's the top 5 options for where we think you should invest. And so that's really what we do in the course. It's not just videos. There's live weekly calls plus one-on-one time with me. Again, I hold people's hand. I want them to succeed. And that segues into the last thing, which is the guarantee. I used to offer a money-back guarantee, but I stopped doing that. My mission is to help people achieve financial freedom as fast as possible. And if they go through the program and after 60 days, they're not getting the results, just giving them the money back, that didn't work for me. That it was a failure of my mission to help them. And so what I started doing is I got rid of the money back guarantee. And if you're not getting the results from the course, then I will work with you one-on-one to get you the results. I would rather do that and know that I helped you than just say, oh, well, we tried, here's your money back. And so I will work with you. I want to make sure you're getting results. And then just make sure that you're in a better position after going through the course, after working with us than you were before. So that's the guarantee.
Okay. Love that. You're totally right. If somebody buys the course, their goal is to get a financial strategy going. And so totally, if they go through the course and they're like, no, I don't have a financial strategy, you could give them your money back, but then they're kind of just back to square one.
Right.
Where it's actually better. I like what you're doing, where it's like, no, let's keep meeting and let's get this together to the point where you feel like you have a plan. And honestly, I would say for myself, one of the most valuable things about having a plan is not only the financial stability and things like that, but it's also just kind of the peace of mind that you're not just running around every night like what's going to happen, or what's my financial future going to look like, but you have kind of a plan in place. You're executing that plan. That's been very beneficial for me. So I
peace of
recommend
mind and confidence. Yeah.
it gives you confidence. Absolutely. So I will recommend to everyone, if you don't have a financial plan, if you don't have $2,000 to buy the course, then that's totally fine. If you do, I would recommend it. Get some help in putting together a plan. But even if you don't buy the course, and I think Steve would agree, get some kind of a plan put together. Okay, so maybe some of the nuggets we gave you here, maybe you're at $500, so it doesn't make sense to buy a $2,000 course. I get that. Then maybe you start with, okay, what were some of the principles that we learned here today? And you can start getting a plan. Maybe your plan is to get to 10K so you can buy the course. So then you can get your plan from 10K to 100K. Baby steps. I always say, how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's one bite at a time.
Yep.
So don't look at your $500 and say, oh, I could never be at 50K a month like Steve. Steve at one point was at 0.
Yeah.
And so, he was behind no matter where you're at. Steve at one point was probably behind where you're at. And same with me. At one point, I was behind where I'm at now. One time my water pump went out on my car when we were first married, and I didn't have enough money to fix it. I had to YouTube how to fix a water pump, and I was completely out of my element. And I was like, oh, I wish I had $120 to just have somebody do this for me.
Yep.
So we've all been there, but then you get a plan and you kind of work your way out it. One more question here from GT. Again, calls to action. Is if you have more questions, you can get in touch with Steve.
Yep.
Also, the course is right here. And if you have questions before you buy the course, Steve, your contact info is on the website, or I can get that in the description too.
The website. There's a get started. Reach out. Would be reaching out to us. We'll schedule time. Hop on a call. Answer your questions, and it's just going back to the guarantee real quick. It's that the guarantee is that within 90 days you'll have made up for the $2,000 investment. So if you haven't done that, then I'll keep working with you until you do. So you will come out ahead. So
awesome. Nope, love it. And a couple last minute questions came in. First off, how specific should a plan be? Could you give kind of an idea of just like, how specific is your financial plan?
Yeah. So when someone goes through the course, the plan is usually, okay, what is it? Where am I now? And then where do I want to be in, for let's say 10 years or 5 years? If it's more than 5 years, then I say you kind of need a stepping stone. It's like, oh, in 10 years, I want to be here. Okay, that's great. Well, we need to figure out where you need to be in 5 years that's on that direction. So you're on the right path. And to get you there, what needs to happen? What's your portfolio going to look like in about 5 years? Well, maybe if I'll have a couple of rentals and I'll have a little bit of this and I'll have this doing this. All right, so then how do we get to that? And then we break that down, and so that your plan is, okay, in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to buy these 3 assets and get them working for me. And then in month 2, I'm going to do this. And so it's, the first 90 days, it's pretty well spelled out. All right, I'm going to invest in this. Then I'm going to take these gains and put it over here. And then you kind of have the short-term plan, the 90 days. And then, all right, so by the end of 1 year, here's where I am. And so you kind of have these checkpoints along the way of where you should be. And an important part of a plan is to figure out the actions that you're going to take, but then also to be able to have the checks to make sure you're there. Okay, hey, I want to be at $10,000 a month in a year. Great. In a year, where are you? In 6 months, are you on track? And so it's having those KPI, key performance indicators. Am I making the progress that I thought I would make? And so that's all part of the plan, is just not what should you do, but what should the progress be, and how do I make sure I'm on track?
Yep. And I guarantee you there's going to be adjustments in the plan. So
that's right.
Probably maybe even monthly. That's for me. My monthly plan is adjusted. It's like, okay, actually it needs to be this and this. And also, tastes change. When I first got in to investing, I wanted to be a real estate mogul. Just because I thought it was kind of cool. I saw it on TV and things like that. I'm like, I want to do that. Then after I got into real estate a little bit, I quickly realized, real estate's not as much fun as it seems like it might be. And I prefer crypto to personally. That's what I preferred. So
I joke with people. They talk about, real estate is passive cash flow. I'm like, oh, so you've never owned a rental?
yeah,
It's not passive.
exactly. Man, it is so much more work than I thought it would be. That's one of the things that drew me to crypto was I was doing, rental properties and things like that. And I was putting in so much work to go find the property. Then you have to go through, make sure it's, get it inspected, make sure it's going to fit what you're trying to do, get the title. Then you have to find a tenant. You have to make sure, okay, maybe I have someone managing the property, but then I have to make sure they're doing a good job. And, and then all this for maybe $600 a month. And then I got into crypto and I was like, oh, or I can just put in, get into this play and I get $600 a month and I don't have to do anything. And so, yeah. Here's another question about the course. Does the $2,000 include everything or are there additional fees for the community?
It does include everything. Yeah, it's $1997. That includes, I will say, 1 year of membership in the community. And we do weekly live calls. The advantage of those is you get to hear other people's questions, people that might be a week or 2 or 4 or 6 weeks ahead of you, hear their questions they're asking, but then also you get to ask your own questions. Hey, Steve, I just watched module 1 and I got a question about video number 3. What do you mean by this? Great, that's what those calls are for. And so, but yeah, there are no surprises, no additional costs, charges, or anything else for you to be able to move forward.
Okay, great. And GT, good point. Can you plan something? Actually, I learned it never goes the way you plan it. So it's not really a plan. It's more of a guideline. Yeah. Like, here's the direction that I'm going. But yeah, you're totally right. It never works out exactly. I make a lot of spreadsheets and they never have turned out exactly how I predicted the future. It's just the nature of the world. And
right.
You don't know what the markets are going to do. You don't know what specific projects are going to do. But it gives you a guideline, a direction of this is the direction I'm going. So then when you're making decisions, it makes it a lot more clear and it's not just a gut feeling. It's not just anything like that. So, but good point, GT. So, well, hey, this has been amazing. Steve, thank you so much for hopping on, sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom. Really appreciate it. Love to have you back, maybe even regularly. Yeah,
let me know. I'd love to. I enjoy doing what I do. So, and just answering questions, that's a lot of what my weekly calls are. I feel like a professor, doing their office hours. Just come in, ask me anything, and that's what I enjoy. So, love to help.
Amazing. Love it. Well, and audience, thank you guys. Always appreciate you showing up for these week after week. Again, it was nice to meet Steve, and it was cool that I was able to share him with my community here. So thank you, audience. Please hit like on your way out. Steve, thanks again. I'm sure we'll be talking in the future. And everyone, hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks so much, James. Appreciate it.